You're on.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talking Chickens number 41 with Stephanie Coomer, APA Grandmaster Exhibitor, APA Apprentice Judge, APA Board Member, just all kinds of shit. So I want to welcome Stephanie. We'll do a little updates beforehand. I spent the weekend in Dalton, Georgia. Had a really good time. Enjoyed judging down there. Always do. Dalton's a very nice place. The area is nice. The fairgrounds is nice. I had over 1,000 birds. I think we got done by 1:30, something like that. So it was a good time. We headed back home, and since we were getting butthole deep snow up here, Terry and I got above Lexington at Georgetown and spent the evening and kind of rumbled back home early Sunday afternoon, and roads were clean and roads were dry. And since then, the roads have turned back to shit here, but it is winter.
It's going to be a whopping 7 degrees Friday morning when we leave for Knoxville.
Yeah, can't wait for that shit. That's going to be nice, especially the earliest is we got to get up. And you got to head over to Dustin's, and I got to head over and down to Dustin, so that should be exciting. And then hopefully we'll get in the Knoxville sometime around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I reckon. Anyway, you got anything else, Maddie? I was just trying to think.
No, I think I've got everybody caught up. I will say thank you for using the hatching time link. I think we've sold like 7 or 8 incubators in the last week or two, and big ones. These guys aren't buying little ones, they're buying big ones. So I was on the phone with Lucas Dickerson the other day and Jimmy Sorrells, and I think they're all set up. Dustin Wilson got a big one, so that's going good. The hatching time, they're probably happy with us.
I hope so. They seem to be. We'll see how that goes. But they seem to be. And I'd like to thank our sponsors, Rozier Poultry Supplies and Eagle's Nest Hatchery. Just got some pictures from Dustin. Power washing, everything in the hatchery. And
I need to change that too. It's Eagle Nest, not Eagle's Nest.
Yeah, whatever.
He's only one eagle. He's not plural.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about hatching time, maybe Stephanie can help. So when you plug them into a dedicated socket, keep them off the surge protectors. I've had 2 or 3 people that have burned up that EMI filter because they're in a surge protector, and either they got bad power or they're getting a surge or something, and it's whacking that EMI filter. So they recommend you plug that directly into a dedicated wall outlet so you've got good power all the time. So that's a little tip for all of you with hatching times to probably not have them. If you got them on something, have them on a UPS backup or something, but a regular surge protector doesn't seem to. I know in the brooders, you definitely don't want to do that either. So it'll blow those fuses out on those. So a little tip on the hatching time, plug them right into the wall.
I agree with that exactly. And then if you do blow it, we do have videos on how to replace it. It's pretty easy.
It's not bad. I've done it 3 times now. So fans and those are not easy to change, but I can change them.
I've had no trouble.
Yeah, would. I haven't had any trouble here. I end up doing the tech support for everybody else, but I haven't had any trouble with mine. They're 5 years old now, so I haven't done anything to them. So other than clean them up and fire them back up, and that'll probably be happening after Knoxville.
Mine's running now, so one of the two is.
Not mine. Not yet.
Not yet.
It's hard, but not yet.
It's hard to start. Once you start, it's not bad, but I just hate dealing with chicks in the winter, so that's my story, and I'll stick to it for a little while longer.
That's right. When you fire that up, let me know, because I got shit to go in.
I got so many. Right now, I'm giving eggs to people that don't even want eggs, because my uncle took him an 18-pack. He goes, God, I still got the other 2 dozen. I said, well, now you got a dozen and a half to go on top.
That's right.
So the pullets are laying good, and I don't like to hatch out of pullets, so I usually let them lay a little while before I do that. And
I do the same. Yeah, I don't like to hatch anything out of pullets.
So the hens aren't kicking in quite as well yet, and once that all starts, then it'll go again.
All right. Well, I think that's updates until we remember as we're going here, because for some reason today feels like off the cuff days. Stephanie, give us a little on how you got started and what you have now, and just kind of give us a little update on the whole spiel there with your big coachings and your big Orpingtons.
Okay. Well, in 2014, my husband wanted chickens and I didn't want chickens because growing up in a horse barn, I just always knew they were messy. And long story short, he got chickens because he wanted them and I fell in love. And in 2016, I went to a chicken show to buy chickens and I fell in love. So in 2016, I got my first large cochins. In 2015, I got my first Orpington, black Orpingtons, started with lavenders. And then in 17, I began showing, which I'm sure Mike will remember, a very uneducated girl with her big black cochins just trying my hardest. But so here we are now, and I've been showing for almost 8 years, breeding for 11, and we've come a long way, you know, with the black cochins and the black Orpingtons. And now I've did a big project with Jonathan Patterson. We made the black Wyandotte large fowl, which is a whole project in itself. And then recently I acquired large moderns, which I'm breeding with Lindsay from MBK Farm, Lindsay Ely. And of course, I have Muscovies in Toulouse that live on the pond. And every once in a great while, you might catch me showing a Muscovy, but not very often. Yeah, though I don't think they're that hard to catch, but I don't know. Danny thinks I'm a Muscovy whisperer because I don't have any trouble catching them. Keeping them caught, I have trouble with. They tend to be pretty sneaky, so.
Yeah, pretty sneaky and pretty strong too. They're
you know, you got a hold of something.
Yeah, you have to hold them by their wings or you're never like, and I've never been scratched by one, fingers crossed, in the almost 2 years I've had them. And I don't know how.
I have.
It's coming. I still got a scar.
Oh, I'm like I don't, it's been close a few times, but I don't know. I've been lucky so far.
I had one of Schaefer's black males rip me through my hoodie, through my shirt, and just shredded right down into the skin.
They're dinosaurs, I swear.
They don't want to be messed with. That's for sure.
Yeah, like you said, they're very strong. Yeah, and they're beautiful and they're very easy to raise. Like I find them to be incredibly easy.
Yeah, I usually raise more than you want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, of course, if you don't know me, I run all of the social media for the APA. I'm also the District 4 director until the next election. And let's see here. I do all the things. I work for Hatching Time. I'm their social media manager as well. So I kind of have my hands in a bunch of different poultry plates. And I'm a apprentice judge getting ready to test, actually.
Good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Where are you going to do that at?
We're going to look at Lake City or Congress. It just depends on how quickly they can get me the open book test. So.
Congress doesn't have any waterfowl this year, so that might.
I know. Yeah, so I don't know how that would work. Then the only other show after that is we are planning on going down to Dalton in March, but I don't know if I'll be able to test there either. So it may wait till Dayton. We'll see.
I know with
they won't have waterfowl there.
The Congress, we have an ABA apprentice judge that wanted to test there, and the problem with it is he lives in Maine, so he doesn't have a lot of options without going a ways to be able to test. So what we're going to do is have him do the chickens, and then the testing judge will review the bantam ducks with him while he's there. So just one of those things, you got to make an exception. It's not their fault that the state is insane. That's making it nice. It's insane. So
it's all New England right now, it seems like. Yeah.
I'm never for the federal government to control everything because they're not very good at it. But that's one program. That's one program that I wish they made all 50 states and territories abide by the same rules instead of having 53 different things we got to do everywhere we go. So
it would make things a lot easier.
Yep. You'd think a program like, I don't know. It's just crazy. I know there are some states that are extremely restrictive and other states that are zero restrictive. Doesn't make any sense, and we just deal with it. I guess over the years I've learned there's no sense in fighting them. You got to work with them and do what you got to do, and hopefully they come to some semblance of sense after a while.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, if you have that MPIP card, you should be able to go anywhere.
I agree, especially with the AI testing. Like,
yep. And it's, some of those want 14-day tests. There, we can't even get it done that fast. So it takes a month or so for us to get the results back. And as well as I do, you could have a wild duck fly over and be infected within 2 minutes after they leave. So I think we're lucky. I think our birds are somewhat immune to that stuff because they get commingled continually and are out and running. And I think that helps them. I think
Emily and I had that same conversation.
That biosecurity for commercial stuff is exactly why they have issues. So
I agree. There's no vigor in those birds.
They have to be controlled. And if you don't control them good, then you're going to have problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're hothouse. When you're hothouse anything, it loses something. I mean, just look at hothouse tomatoes. Yeah, there's no flavor, So it's the same way with chickens. Swine were the same way. They had big barns at 9,000 miles off the road, and no one could get in there, and nothing did get in there. And one person goes in there and sneezes, the whole damn barn goes to hell. That's just insane.
Oh yeah, we have several around here, and I didn't even realize it until one summer I had the windows open and I could smell it. I thought there's a hog house around here somewhere. Well, there is, right across the road and way back in the woods, and it was cleaning it out.
Spraying that on the ground.
Yeah, usually right across the road. Right across the road. There's nothing like pig shit. I have to say, I raised a lot of stuff in my life, but that sheep and pigs are unique.
Yeah, I have sheep now, and we raised hogs for 8 years. So yeah, it's.
Yep.
I pasture the sheep though, thank God. I don't have to smell it.
Yep, my chickens are nothing compared to that. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, Steph, tell us, kind of. We have a lot of new people that watch all the time and aren't grizzled veterans or veterans in any way. How did you go about taking what you got and making it better? How did you go about breeding them?
Big old question, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't, not specifics, but some people are just stuck. They're in this death spiral loop, and they can't figure out how to get out of them, and they can't find that one person or two people that will actually tell them the truth,
right,
and get them the hell out of it. Either that, or it's either get out of the business or just enjoy your chickens in your backyard because they're not worth the shit.
Right.
So I mean, as far as to the standard, so I mean, a lot of them want to get out, and they don't have a clue how because they see the same thing all the time.
So, sorry about that.
That's
okay. For me, when I first the Orpingtons are a really good example because they required so much work. I raised a ton. Like, even if you just take the self blue Orpingtons, which they're not an APA approved variety, but I took them from essentially a hatchery chicken using a black to basically a standard chicken. And I mean, I think in 3 years I raised 700 of them because I couldn't get my hands on a lot of quality blood. There was a lot of English import stock blood that I could get. And I mean, I think we kept less than 35 out of 700. Now I know not everybody can do that, but my best thing is obviously to buy the best birds that you can afford. I remember buying my first black Cochin male from a big breeder who was Mike, and my husband and I having a stroke over the price. But we did it, and it was, it was definitely a worthy investment into the line. Not that particular bird, because if you remember, I lost him in a fire 2 days after I brought him home. But birds I acquired from Mike after that, essentially.
But he was replaced, folks.
He was, yes, he was. That was such a crazy situation. But the other birds that I got from you, helped build an incredible line using birds that I wasn't really sure on the background of. crossing those lines together and again raising numbers. So like one of my biggest things is buy the best bird you can afford. Even, it might be a little bit of an investment. A lot of your big time breeders are going to charge maybe a couple $100 for a chicken, but that one chicken could bring something into your line that you didn't expect to be able to produce even in that first generation. You just never know. And then of course raises money as you have space and financial ability to feed. I'm not really big on culling early. I know there are a lot of breeders that can look at, chicks and young birds and knock them out. I find that I've had really young birds I was for sure thinking weren't going to make anything end up being incredible birds. Birds that I thought for sure were going to be on the cull list that just ended up being some of the best adult birds. So really raising your birds, a lot of people want to cull, especially, your large fowl in that 5 to 6 month age, even some a little bit younger. And I find that you're really shooting yourself in the foot when you do that, because these birds tend to really develop once they hit that 8-month mark and can be something completely different. And I know you guys can speak for that, especially dealing with large chickens and bantams. I'm sure that point happens a little bit earlier, but I would still say
Bantams are a lot easier to do than big ones. Big ones, I don't care what breed it is. You have to let them grow up. I don't care. I've raised a bunch of different stuff, and you just never call them early. You just got to let them go. And, obvious stuff you can get rid of, but as far as type blooming out, especially the Asiatic varieties, even the big rocks, they just take big reds. They all take forever. Wyandottes, you just got to let them go. And one day you'll walk out there and think, where the hell did that come from?
Yep. That's exactly how it is. I had sent some pictures of some black Orpington pullets that were about 5 months old to Jeff Shank, another breeder. And he said to me, oh, they all have crow heads. And I said, no, they don't. I said, this is just that awkward stage in them. I said, now I'm going to send you pictures of these same birds at 8 months. And you're going to go, oh my gosh. And that's exactly what happened. But you wouldn't know that unless you gave those birds that chance, because they can look a little crowy. Orpingtons can at that age. And I've even seen Cochins look like they had some skull width, but not a whole lot. And then by the time they hit that 8 month, it almost happens overnight. Their head just explodes. And I mean, some do and some don't. But a lot of times you'll find some females and they've got to have some skull to them to begin with. They're not going to be narrow from day one. I want to make that really clear. But if you find one that you're like, not sure that skull is going to be wide enough, you might walk out one day and it has exploded into this big, beautiful Asiatic skull. So patience is
one great thing we learned on here from Dan Castle when he did the podcast was that he tracks his hatch date. So if he's got a pen of 15 birds and there's 2 or 3 of them in there that aren't maturing as fast as the others, I really paid attention to this year. And Mike wouldn't let me kill one that I was going to kill because he was so much smaller than all his brothers and sisters. It ended up turning out pretty nice and probably more correct size than what he should have been. And now he looks pretty good, but he almost bit the dust because I thought I got rid of some other ones that just didn't grow as fast. So I think that's something you really got to watch, especially with the big birds, that fast maturing feature. If they have it, that's something you want to perpetuate and kind of get away from the slow growing ones if you've got one that just pops out real quick. So that's definitely a trait that I know he does in his Brahmas and his Australorps, and it's helped him. So I that was one thing I took away from that watch if you got 20 chicks in a pen and they're all the same age and you got 2 real little ones in there, they're probably not going to finish out as nice as the rest of them.
Well, and I know
going to your skull thing, let me add something to that. Well, yeah, that is true, and they will expand. But if you look at them, if on an Asiatic, on Brahma and a Cochin, if their head isn't round, if they don't have the correct shape, don't worry about the width as quick. Worry about that shape, because if they've got that oblong shape, I don't give a shit how wide their head gets. They still look crow-headed from the side.
Yep.
And because the beak's not the right spot and it's too long and it doesn't have the correct angle to it. And I think if we pay more attention to that,
you're right.
I think it's easier if you have to get rid of something. It's easier to do it by looking at that and not necessarily the width all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, a lot of times those round-headed ones do have more width to them
Yeah.
earlier.
They will, the other thing I noticed too, and I was just having this conversation with another breeder, is when they get too much skull in front of the eye, between the beak and the eye, you really want to watch that. Because not only can they end up crowy sometimes, but other times they don't get that proper brow and they get that wide-eyed look. And that, as a breeder, it makes me crazy when I see the cochins with the big open wide eyes. They're not supposed to have the standard doesn't say that. But they also tend to get a lot of bacteria in their eyes when they're like that. And I find that leads to some vigor issues. And it was something I seen, early on either. And that can go the other way too, when they have too much brow, when they start to get overbrowed and overdone, in the face.
Yeah, I've had more trouble with big cochins, especially females, than any
Mm-hmm.
other breed or any of them getting an eye infection, usually
Mm-hmm.
in one eye, and it took a while. I kept watching, and if you ever watch a cochin, the females especially, they're always scratching themselves up by
Mm-hmm.
their face a lot, and I think that toenail. I mean, they're walking in crap and everything else all day. They
Depositing
end up
bacteria.
they scratch that, and let me tell you, it's damn near impossible to ever get that eye back to where it's supposed to be. When
Yep.
it goes, and you can just put as much shit in as you want. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't lay, they won't do things, but they
Right. Right.
always have that cloud over that eye.
Yes, they
And it
do.
seems like forever. And I've tried everything, running horses my whole life. You get scratched corneas and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
you can boric acid and stuff, and you can wash that out. And usually the eye is fine. That cloudiness, it doesn't disappear in the coachings.
And
So
and
I think that's something. Go ahead.
that's one of the things that I like. And of course I got some hens early on from Sierra out west, who she had big cochins. She doesn't raise chickens anymore, but they were very overdone, what I would say, in the face. And it was something I spent a few years on, was refining the skin and tightening the skin and really watching birds for how loose they were in the face, especially as pullets and first year hens. Now they tend to get a little more saggy as they get older, just like people. But when I see, and I don't see a lot of it anymore, but when I was seeing those pullets and those hens get those really big, droopy, overdone brows and
Big
facial
brow.
skin, I was culling them. And I think that
Yeah,
helped a lot with that too.
yeah. Because if you take a lot of those hens and pullets, a few male birds, but not ever. They're really rare. But if you pull
Hmm.
those those folds back, you'll just see deposits of crud
Exactly.
in there, and that just keeps building up in them. And I think we get to the point, that's not a major thing until it is. So you
Right.
never. I mean, most people you don't pick up. You look down in and everything looks good, and you go about your business. But
Hmm.
to catch each one of them and really take a look at them, and usually when you find it is when you're trying to find a bird to show, and you pick her
Absolutely.
up, and then you're looking at everything because when you look at a coach, and you want that size, you want that roundness, but you want that expression on their face, and you pick
Yep.
them up, so you start really going over stuff. It's like, oh crap, look at this crud in here.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And
that's
that
something
leads
else
to
that's
illness.
oh yeah, because that leads then, and then the sinuses get plugged
Yep.
up, and they're, I mean, I don't know how many times you can wipe their nostrils, but all that shit just keeps building in that same area, and then they get sinusitis or something worse,
Yep.
because all those folds attract all that stuff, and they're into everything. I mean, they don't move real quick, but they
Oh
never
yeah.
stop. They got their head somewhere. They're like dirt digging machines. Uh, so I mean, that's something you really got to pay attention to if you want to keep a healthy flock, because like at this
Absolutely.
time of year, the weather means nothing to them. I
No, they
mean,
love
they don't.
this. Yeah.
They like it cold. They don't like snow, but they like it cold. They don't really care.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, when it gets real hot, then sometimes they care, but they can get pretty good at it as long as they're not big old fat hens or big old fat
Yep.
cockbirds.
They're pretty
They'll get
tolerant of
good
the
at it.
heat.
They drink a lot.
Yep.
Uh,
They eat a lot. They eat a lot.
they eat quite a bit, but they drink a lot. And in this type of weather, a little tip, you'll be surprised how much water your birds will drink in the wintertime if they have
Oh yeah.
access to it. And I think when the water freezes or whatever, and you're thinking, well, it's not really that hot today, they don't need it. I think it hurts their immunity, and I think it just draws them down. And I think that then they'll gorge themselves in water. And you look at them,
Mm-hmm.
and them hands will just be completely wet in front. The bantams do the same thing. They stick their whole head in. Well, hell, it's cold out. And so
Yep.
they got all that. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into the husbandry of them, more
Oh
than
yeah.
just you've got a really good strain. And they'll go the other way just as fast as they came the good way.
And I mean,
So
it's really one of the things I find that people do, especially with the large fowl, that hinders them the most is keeps them inside all the time. I mean, people, they ask me all the time how I condition my birds. And the honest answer is they live outside. They don't even come inside till maybe 3 weeks before a show. They're inside right now because we have back-to-back shows. That's it. Otherwise, mud, rain, snow, heat, they live
yeah,
outside. They live outside. They pasture.
yeah, yeah. Mine don't get mine are out in the mud or whatever else. If there's not a show coming up, but when there is a show coming up, I might take 3 or 4 of them, but they're in a big area. Uh,
Exactly. In
you
a
know,
big pen, not little cages.
Now I do have to keep the cockerels when they start getting to be assholes, which is right now.
Yeah, the male
Uh,
birds are a little bit different.
but they'll stay in decent condition, and they'll continue to grow. The
Mm-hmm.
cockerels will when you put them in a show coop or a double show coop, and just all you have to do is move them around a couple times a week,
Yep.
or I take them outside and put them in goose coops, and
And
then
so
bring
that's
them
I
back
have
in where the
those
drop
the
pens.
X pens,
Yeah,
like 3 or 4 days a week. I throw them on grass for a few hours. I
yeah.
actually built 3 by 3 by 3, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 foot tall mailbird pens for all of my males when they're conditioning. And then I'm showing I have a really nice black cochin male, which you handled in Arkansas. He's actually in a 10 by 10 by himself right now because he's too good to, he gets to do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
But
the, the,
um
the
I,
thing I
I throw
find
all
on
my
that
show
is,
females together.
yeah, my females are all together. I haven't
Yep.
separated anything out for breeding anyway. The thing I find out on male birds, though, especially cockbirds, is that if they're sequestered by themselves, they have a tendency to get real lethargic. And when they get lethargic, that's when shit starts happening to them. So
Hmm.
what I like to do is, like, if I had that male bird of yours, uh, and I got if you like him. But anyway, if I had that male bird like yours, I would take an old hen or something that I'm not going to show, and I'd
Hmm.
put in with him
Oh, good idea.
something to give him something to do. That way, when he calls, for feed like they do or whatever, or even put a show coop in the same pen behind him up off the ground and stick a cockerel in there so they can see each other.
Oh
And
yeah.
it kind of keeps the whole thing flowing on it, because they will get lethargic. And
Well, he's
sometimes when they get lethargic, they just get shitty. I mean, they don't feel well because they
yeah,
have,
that makes sense. He's next door to all the show hens. He can just barely see them, but they're right
well,
next
if he
door to
can
each other.
see him, that
Yep.
that's the important thing, because they'll get up on their tiptoes and call over top that board if they can. Well,
Yep.
that
That's what
helps
he's
out a lot
doing.
too.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's been doing
and I
good
think,
so far. So,
yeah, he has, and I
but he
think
goes
that
he
that
goes
helps out a lot of birds.
on grass. His X pen is right next to the female pasture. So he can see when he's outside, he gets all the ladies.
Yeah,
He just can't
yeah,
he can't get to them.
yeah, but that part of me, as long as he can see him and they can see him and
Hmm.
he can call and stuff, and it works the same thing in the bantams. It works in the coaching bantams, the male birds, especially when we're AI in them. Is
Hmm.
if you bring them out and then when you put them back, uh, you could switch pens, do something a little bit different so they got someone else to call to. It's just a mind. I mean, they don't have a great big mind. You can't get no brain in between. I mean, how big can it be? That big? So I mean, but it's a thing.
They get
Everything's
bored.
new. So they
Yeah.
do, and you take two cockerels out. You can have two cockerels together for a whole time and never fight. You know, you
Yep.
put them in a show coop for an hour looking at them, and you put them back down, and then some bitches act like it's somebody brand new. So I mean, but that's all it takes is that little bit of vigor, and they start their blood pumping and doing stuff, and I think that's a lot better for them.
They just, I'm a condition, like I'm always feeling my bodies. And I think that's something people neglect is like when you pick up that bird, it can look as big as you want when it's on the ground or in a cage. But when you pick up that chicken, if it does, I want to feel that body. I want it to fill its frame. And I think that would be something good for beginners too, to really remember is that they see a lot of these big birds, the Orpingtons, the Cochins, the Wyandottes, and they go, oh, it's all feather. But a good, well-bred bird is not all feather. A good, well-bred bird feels really well in the hand. It doesn't feel soft. It doesn't feel light when you go to pick them up. And I know you guys as judges know, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen it, like even in a junior show judging, you pick up a really nice big chicken and there's nothing to it. It's just.
Yep, there's nothing there. It's just frame with no meat, no substance, frame and
feel that
feathers.
keel.
Yeah, and those birds, when shit does happen, changing the weather, that's the ones that die. There's nothing there.
Yep. Same thing with the overly obese birds, the ones that feel heavy but aren't actually body. They're so fat that that slight change of weather, heart attack. Yep.
You've got two breeds that are notorious for getting that way if they don't have enough to do. Is Orpingtons. We've had buffs for a long time. Buffs and Cochins, they can get lethargic and fat, and there's not much coming back for that once they get that way either. So it's hard to get them back.
It's almost impossible to get the fat off of them. It's just, I mean, I've had mine on oat diet. I've bred in some new stuff into the Orps to try to curb a lot of that. But once you have a fat hen, she tends to stay a fat hen. Like, I mean, I've pulled a little weight off of them, but not even pastured. Not.
The females are worse than the males. You can get a male that gets a little over,
and
he may come back. But I'm telling you, the females, it's like there's no end to that scale, and it's the same way in bantams. Matt, we get a bantam hen, she starts laying. It's like you just go all to hell all at once, and they feel like, well, it might not be overweight, but there's no feel there. It's mush.
Yeah.
The body thing is very important, and I never preach that enough. Especially, I'm going to call them out here too. The silky people have no concept of that concept. The bird looks good, but then when you reach in it, it tapers back, or they're just they look good from outside the cage, but there's nothing there. There's nobody there to reproduce. That's something I know Marty was on, and they really need to. If you're raising those, you really need to pay attention to your body width and depth and length, and not just the show quality, because we can fuzz one of them up and they can look good, but I know when I pick one up if I'm going to like it or not. It's just and
by that same token, right? So the people that consistently win in Silkies,
they watch
their birds. When you pick them up, it's there because they watch that depth. How much depth they got, because no depth, you can't lay an egg. There's no place for the damn thing to go.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just that whole thing. So I mean, when you come down to it and you really think about it, we do a hell of a lot of things once you're used to it. Once you've done it, now you've done it for 10 years without thinking. And new people, you'll just half off, you'll offhand tell them, but that doesn't help them. Because no one puts that bird in their hand like we do, Matt, when we're teaching people on Old English or something. Put that bird in your hand. Can you feel that?
Moderns and Old English,
feel especially. Moderns, Old English. Well, shit, Seabrights, and that's in every breed, though. If you can feel that when you pick it up, that bird is solid. There's something to that bird, and it works the same way in a big Cochin or a big Orpington. I mean, it takes two hands, but you pick them up, you go, oof. No, they're not heavy, but they're firm. That everything is where it's supposed to be. That's a healthy chicken 9 times out of 10.
So one thing I would say for a newbie, especially if I always look at the birds when they're wet, and I know that's something that Dan Castle does too, and a lot of other breeders. After I wash a chicken, or if I'm, I'm really wanting to see the silhouette of that bird, I will look at it when it's wet. You can see the type on a bird really well when it's wet because all those feathers are matted down. You want to know what you have for body and structure and balance? Look at it when it's wet. That's a really good way to see a chicken.
Ken, how many times we wish Bantam females, and I'll tell him I really like the body on this one and not so much on this one. So, and normally when they're dried and feathered back out, then you'll know the ones that have the body. Just there's more there to fill out with.
Yes, yeah.
You're not so much relying on feather and condition. You're relying on the whole bird, and definitely a point to watch. And I don't care what
all breeds. I think that's neglected. I really do.
Leghorns. John Schroeder's a great one for that length of body and the width of the body on his Leghorns, and he's watched that for years. And he's had, when he was at the Livestock Conservancy, they had a whole thing with the Buckeyes and how they selected them for that. And that's a very good information. You can go and get that from their website if you need it. And it takes a little while to get that knack of how they should feel going back. Each breed's a little different, but when you got it and when you don't. I think there's not a whole lot in between. They're either not there or they are. So that's definitely one of the traits you want to perpetuate. And I say that with everything. If they don't lay and they don't produce, then we're not going to go anywhere. I've had several breeds over the years that were very good and won a lot of shows, but they are not here because they produce.
That's one of my biggest arguments with Silkies is that I talk to so many breeders and they say, oh, well, I got 8 eggs out of that hen last year. I'm sorry, what? That hen wouldn't exist in my breeding program. That's why they struggle.
As well, I had somebody tell me that they have to breed from pullets because their hens never lay. Well, that's a big red flag right there. So if I rarely breed from a pullet, and if I do, it's because I don't have nothing else normally. But
yes,
we were talking earlier about I don't like to breed from a pullet till the egg size gets up. And you can say what you want about egg size and chick size, but when we look at that bird in the standard, it's a 2-year-old bird, and that's what we're trying to replicate. And if you're breeding from cockerels and pullets, that's going to be tough to do because you're going to have really good cockerels and pullets, but you're probably not going to have good cocks and hens. So we've always kind of tried to use the older birds because we know what they are. And if we're using a younger bird, it's an exceptional one that's matured fairly fast. But you can breed from too young of stuff. That's another thing. Another big thing I think for newbies is don't make a million matings. I think I've talked on here about my friend Bill Henderson. He always said breed from the exceptional ones and sell all the good ones. And he could take anything in pigeons. I don't care what breed it was. And within about 2 years, he was kicking everybody's butt because he only made 2 or 3 matings. But those birds that come out of that matings were fantastic. And he supplied everybody with a lot of birds because if it didn't meet his specs, it went. But I've never seen anybody in this whole 50 some years ever get more done in a shorter period of time, making so few matings. So you tend to want to get as many as you can, but you got to make sure that you're getting the quality when you're getting them out and not just raising a bunch of stuff and then going to sort them. Because you can tell pretty quick whether they're going to throw good birds or not.
That's one thing I do too, is I only breed pairs and trios, and I only breed the trios that I can tell like which egg is from which hen because there's a slight difference in them. And even as long as I've been doing this, I still do a lot of that. I might test mate a group just because the lines I've gotten so far along with some of these lines, but I still to this day prefer to know exactly which male bird and which female bird. And then, people ask, I mean, I might produce 8 cochin females, and of those 8 cochin females, 5 of them I could easily put in a show and feel extremely confident about it. But going back to not breeding until they're hens, one of my biggest arguments on that, and I think this is so important, I never breed pullets. Again, it would take like not having anything else to do that. How many times I can say I've seen after that first adult molt, a twisted wing feather grow in or something else very undesirable of that breed. And if you breed those pullets, you don't know that that's there. And then you're going to find yourself in a pickle where you're producing wing issues or, you know, body
Definitely think
issues.
that's some of the coach and wing problems is breeding from real young birds. If they're
Yes.
2-year-old men and they've got solid wings, they're not going to throw too many bad ones. But if it's a pullet, you're not real sure about it. Guess what you're going to have? And we see a lot of that in the shows where, and it seems to only be on one side anymore. It used to be both sides, but you'll pull out one wing and there's that big old gap there. And
Mm-hmm.
almost, I hate
Notorious
to tell
for it.
people, it's almost better to start over because I don't know. I've never seen, have you, Mike, ever seen anybody breed out of that?
It's I'm sure it can be done, but it's hard. It's very hard.
The
I mean, the
there's
only time
something.
you can use one though, if you happen to have, I, I think, uh, I think if it's a male bird, I kill it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
if it's a female and she's exceptional everywhere else, you might try
Mm-hmm.
just because of that. But let's face it, how many times does that happen where the best that you've ever had has one of those? It doesn't happen very often. I mean, you could try it, but as soon as you screw up, you might get a generation or two, and then all of a sudden, the next generation, there it is again because it's lined up with whatever male somewhere
Doubled up.
somehow. So, yeah, I'm not big on that. I mean, I've used females I thought that didn't have enough width in the primaries.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as that, as they used to call it, coaching wing, no,
Yeah, the coaching wing. Yeah.
don't use it. Yeah. Oh no, you're pulling them
And
too
that's,
far. I said
I
I got
mean,
birds you could take a come along and try to pull them, and when they pull, the whole wing will rip because they're not like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right.
I know
So
that's a
yeah,
trait that when I got the Chanticleers, and I think I got them in 2017, that was one of their problems. They didn't have
yes, it
a
was.
weak wing. They just didn't pull them up tight enough. And I see that in a lot of the lines that are out there that their wings are droopy. Well, Michael, there's 15 cockerels out there, and there's one that's drooping its wing, it won't be here the next time he's down here.
Yeah.
Because I think if you focus on that trait, you can you can get rid of those problems. And I don't care what it is, Leghorn. If they got droopy wings, they're going to always pretty much have droopy wings, and you just got to focus on it and get rid of it. And there's been a lot of good birds go just because I didn't like the way they held their wings. They had everything else going for them. They just
I
droop them
agree.
down.
Wings
And
are
it
hard to
happens.
breed out of.
Yeah, and it happens in big coaches and in coaching bantams the same way. But if you watch those birds, like especially in cockerels, right? If it's in a female, she's got to go, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But in a cockerel, it seems like you have one, maybe two every couple of years. They grow these tremendously long primaries,
Yes.
and they're not very big yet, so that whole thing drags down. Eh, But but the length of that primary never changes. I mean, they're big and not real wide, and all that weight, I think. And of course, that again, it's where are the shoulders? Where are the shoulders at that they don't have that power? And yeah, you could turn them out and get them flying around like we do Old English or something, so they snap better like that. But that doesn't alleviate that length of
Long
that
wing.
wing
So
feather.
So you're really hitting on something that I tell a lot of people about, and I think that's something huge that breeders don't pay attention to, especially new breeders, is the length of the primaries. So that's one thing I evaluate, especially all of my pullets and cockerels for, is how long those primaries are, because I think that if you let those get too long, not only does that end up genetic, like you're talking about, and they have trouble with those wings, the wings never sit tight. They never,
No,
that length of primary can change your wing completely. You know, when you look at, and I know you guys have handled a lot of my coachins, they all have really nice short primaries, and that wing, it folds beautifully and it comes together beautifully with the proper width. But that's something I'm watching for as early as those first adult feathers coming in. And I don't think a lot of breeders pay attention to that either, especially when you're new. They look at the primaries for width, but they're not considering the length of those actual primaries.
that's true, and you'll find something that corresponds. Thus, the length of the primaries, the length of the foot feathering, and the
Mm-hmm.
length of the tail feathering.
Mm-hmm.
And all that shit has to do with balance. If that
Yes.
big old long
That's
tail.
one.
You're not supposed to
You
have
bring
that
that up,
either.
and I can remember Keith LeGrand, God love him, and I know he watches this, so I'll have to bring his name up. But he was a SOB when we used to have what we called extreme foot feather. Coaching bands would get these tremendous foot feathers that just went out like a deacle. The problem with
Yeah.
that was that also was connected to that long, narrow primary. And every
Yes.
one of those birds that had that, remember those, Mike? They were everywhere.
Yes.
At one time, they have this extreme foot feather. Oh, they're just gorgeous. But then we look at their wings and we got that mess. So that is tied together genetically. Is if you've got
Absolutely.
extreme
Yes.
foot feathers where you got foot feathers that long, you're going to have wings that long that go way past the stern. And he was a SOB on that.
Yeah,
And his white
he
females
was.
always had them little tiny wings because he hated that extreme foot. I call it extreme. We don't see it anymore, not like we did then, but they would have boots on them like a deacle. And
Wow.
what happens is feathers also get very brittle, so
Yes, they get too hard. Yep.
Well, that's definitely genetically tied together. So wings and foot feathering is very well linked, as opposed to when you have poor foot feathered birds, you got real poor feathered wings. They'll be spread out, and so something I always watch real hard on, especially on whites, because you see it more on whites because they're thinner feathered, and the blacks not so much. But on the big whites and the bantam whites, you really had to watch that.
Wings, tail, and foot feathering, and also if you ever find a bird with vulture hawks, you look at the stiffness of their foot feathering and the length of their foot feathering and of their wings. Merrill, who always told me he wanted it to look like a deck of cards fanned out for foot feathering. They're not real long, but there's a whole bunch of them. When they pick their feet up, it looks like they're picking up the sod, right?
Yep.
And that's exactly how you want. And when you get that length of that tail or that wing feather primary, and they just look good. You get them up and you flip them up and they just flip back, and when you put them back, you still got that much rear end sticking past where the wings go. That's nice. That's the way it
Yes,
should.
absolutely.
A big bird's going to have a longer wing, right, in large fall, but still it's the proportion of that wing to where it lands on the bird. And I think that's real important. And a lot of people don't pay attention. They're you'll have that long. Well, look how wide it is. But that doesn't make any damn difference. That's not going to help you anywhere if they're long winged.
Yep, because that's going to throw it off.
Yep,
and
exactly.
There's another thing with feathers that is highly neglected. It's actually funny. When I was in Lake City with Dan, we actually pulled some feathers off of one of my birds that was going into a breeding pen to show a breeder who was asking about some stringy feathering in the tail of a cochin. And feather density is something I think that gets neglected too. And you see it a lot in large cochins, large Orpingtons. You see it in the Bantam cochins. So when these feathers, they do one of two things. They either start to look really stringy, which the blue cochins get it too, or they start to cup too much. The end of the feather will really cup and almost make where it just looks like little bumps all over the cushion. And I find that's because the feather is not dense enough. The actual, not the width of the feather, the actual density of the feather. Like when you look at that feather, they'll almost appear translucent because there's not enough mass there to support. And you start, like I said, getting either one of those issues.
It was horrible when we started in whites. I think when did you
tell
me I needed to fix them? Probably about 2010 or something when I started with them, and we got whites from everybody, and that was their biggest problem. We call it density of feather. So whites have any breed have a thin feather to begin with, and if you get that too thin, then you get that stringiness. Then they go and put those birds into the blacks, and guess what they do to the blacks and blues?
Same thing.
And model. So it gets consistent over that. But that width of feather, again, that's something you should watch when you're washing. You'll see it right away when you're washing the bird on how well that feather holds up when it's wet. If it's not holding up good when it's wet and it looks real frizzled and fuzzy when it's wet, that's going to be a problem down the road. So I know we have always been in all the Bantams over the years, always been a SOB on that. And those stringy feather ones got to go. You also get it when you get that real narrow sex feather in the hackle of the males. The white males used to dress around with their sickle feathers and their hackle feathers. That real thin, stringy feather in the hackle and saddle will throw it in the cushion on the females. So you want that width of sex feather in the males to be as wide and and as short as possible. I don't want an overdone hackle and an overdone saddle on a male bird, because and I've bred them, and I found that out very early on, that's never going to go away. So those are great things, and that thickness of feather is something you should pay attention in all of them.
And I think that is a majorly overlooked thing. And you can see it in the show halls. You've seen it at Ohio this year. I seen in a lot of the large fowl classes was a feather density issue. The birds had good type. They looked nice, but the density was not there. And it's just something that I don't think the breeders are looking for, because they see type and they see, oh, it's got a good head. It's got nice wing.
If you've ever had Rhode Island Reds, you learn that really quick, because that's death in Reds. The Reds have to have that thick feather. If they start getting stringy, that nastiness in there, it never goes away. So I guess I picked it up from years of having Reds, and we always watch that feather quality on Reds, something fierce, because it can go down in one generation. You can put two together, and they'll throw this stuff that you thought, what the hell? I mean, where they look like they were frizzled, that they just had no density to them. They just curl up. And I see that a lot. I see it in Americanas a lot. There's another one that some of the Americanas, because they're using that self blue gene in itself has got poor feather quality attached to it. So
very poor.
Anything self blue, you're going to have feather quality issues. Well, then what do? They put blacks into them to make them better, but then they don't kill those blacks that come out of those self blues. And guess what you got? You got, because those blacks from self blue sometimes throw really poor feather quality birds. I've seen it.
You can get both. Yeah. You can get some really beautiful birds, and then you can also have some really terribly feathered chickens.
Yep.
Now,
so those
I
are
will say on coachings, on pullets, if you're looking, especially bantam pullets, and especially white pullets, when you're looking at them, if you've never watched them and you've never had them up to get conditioned, sometimes they can fool you, because they will have a feather that looks strange at the ass end. They're not really frizzly, but they just don't seem to have the substance. Now, 90% of the time, if you wash them and let them dry, and then the feather takes back to form.
Oh yeah.
So you on cockerels, listen, if that's a stringy ass hackle and saddle feather, that's stringy ass hackle and saddle feather. And if you've got a couple in there that do that little twisty long thing, gone.
Yeah.
Because they're going to throw that. On females, little different story. You got to kind of, but as a general rule, and I noticed on a lot of big coachings, is they'll have a shitload of feathers, big cushions, lots of feathers, but the width of those feathers is very wide.
Yes.
So that's another thing. You've got to get that width of feather, and like Matt likes to say, look like a rose petal, not up and squared off at the end, or square and then rounded. They go straight across and round. And there's a whole lot of them out there.
That's what Merrill was always good for. That one is a rose petal feather. That's where I got it from, I think, years ago. But especially with the rare breeds, that's what we tried to get in them, because the rare varieties, because they didn't have the feather that the blacks and whites have. Some of the problems with those off colors is that reason. They just don't have that.
Yep. You see it in the blues. Even the pullets can have beautiful feather and get stringy as hens. It's something that as a blue breeder, I've been battling for, I think, 8 years now. And it just,
you probably always will.
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe that.
Yep. I think it's genetic in there, that the blues always have an issue with feather quality, and it's something you really got to pay attention. And some of the problem is the blacks they're using in them. I think tends to perpetuate that some. We see it in the splash even. I'll see splash with horrible feather quality. Well, I know damn well I'm not going to put that in my blue mating because you know that if it doesn't have it, we're never going to get it crossing it back to a black. You're going to still get a percentage of bad feathered blues.
And you get that exact same cushion feather in buffs.
Yes.
In buff females, I don't know what it is. It's the same thing. Now, even on some really good buff Orpingtons, they'll have that real nice wide feather, those females, right? And it'll look great. But when you get right back to the tail,
it just falls apart.
it falls apart. It will
That's
happen
the
on
blue jean does
coaching
it too.
bantams. So it's
Mm.
got to be something in that color that it's like they can't get all the way there.
And
It's
the
Mm-mm.
buff males
almost.
are always have to be SOB on the buff males because they will get that stringy
Yes, they will.
thin saddle feather. The old time buffs years ago were just horrible for that. They would drag the
Yep.
ground again with their hackle and saddle,
Wow.
hackle and hackle feathers. They would do that. So we worked really hard with the buffs over the. Not that we ever wanted that project, but we inherited it when Freddie died, and Lord knows the buffs, we put everything into them that we could do it, and in blacks and whites and whatever to get them to where they are now, which we're fairly happy with, but they're not perfect by no means. And I don't know that they ever will be. They haven't been for 100 years.
Probably not.
And I mean,
every once in a while we'll sneak one in there, but
maybe if
those
you
are,
had the volume of breeders working with them that the other colors have, but we just
Yep.
don't have enough dedication to them to create enough diversity and crossback that I just don't with any of the buff varieties. I just don't on any chicken. I don't see it happening. But
very tough color. Everybody always talks about solid colors are easy. That one isn't.
buff
Right now.
buff's the one color I don't want to raise. I can appreciate it, but I have no interest in it. I deal with blue. I'm good.
It is not anybody that says the solid colors are easy. Well, they haven't bred whites, and they haven't bred blacks, and they haven't really bred buffs because all three of those have their own way.
I say that about black all the time. I'm like, it's not easy because you start to get a little bit of that purpling and bluing in the feathers, and you could easily ruin your feather quality, you know. And breeders don't pay attention to that either. Like I was looking at Orpington pullets the other day. I got two really nice pullets. Guess what color they are? They're not green. I can tell you that, and they're not staying. It doesn't matter how good their type is if they don't have the that purple is a perfect sign that your feather quality is starting to go down the drain.
Another thing I see a lot with pictures online, and you don't see it so much in the old poultry press pictures, but online I see it a lot. So we used to call it a black lace black, but I'll see these blacks that they got pictures of, even in Old English, where you can actually see that faint lacing on every black feather that we called them. I always called them black lace blacks. They're great for blue breeding, but they ain't
perfect
worth
for blue breedings.
a hoot for when you're trying to make a green black. So I'll get into a class every once in a while and in all breeds, and I'll look at these and I thought, well, these come out of blues because I can see the lacing on the. And it's funny they have better lacing on the blacks than they do on the blues that they get out because that black lacing.
They don't have any shafting on that blacks.
Yeah, there's no
right?
shafting.
I had one last year in the blue mating, and I bred the crap out of her. Because and like that to me in blues is a genetic lottery. It's like that's what you want. You're gonna use that, but I would never breed that bird into a black chicken. I can tell you that.
Like, throw that black lace blue, I call it. I can see it. I see a lot in Old English black bantams, especially male birds, because you can see the feather a little better on them than the females. But I see a lot of them I know come out of blue matings, and because they're black lace blue.
Yep, or the undercolor starts to fade just so slightly. Just ever so slightly in the blacks when you breed them too much into blue.
Yep, that's a tricky one.
Yep, but hey, it's easy because they're a solid colored bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, talk about coaches a little bit. Talk about your experiences now. You've been in poultry politics for a little bit. How's that go? I think we told you not to do it, and you did it anyways. So.
I mean, it was a very valuable experience. And to be fair, if I had more time, like I was one of those people I take on a lot. If I had more time, I would probably continue my time as a director. The meetings can be stressful. Absolutely. The politics can be, they can be a little rough. It does make you a target sometimes. You have to have thick skin to do it. I'm going to continue my role with the marketing team and stay running social media and still doing those great Champion Row videos that everybody loves. I'm just going to, step away from the board of directors. And I'm a firm believer in change. I think that we should have new people rotating in and out for fresh ideas. But, being on the board really gives you a different kind of insight into poultry in general and exhibition. And you guys know, running the ABA, like it's really a whole nother side of things that you don't think about when you're just an exhibitor, and all the things that are happening behind the scenes. And I would definitely,
you get to see the whole country.
yeah,
So one of the first
yeah,
things I was amazed at, the things that we take for granted around here, they may not have as many birds on the West Coast, or the kinds of
exactly.
show you can go within 100 miles, every weekend here. So you have to kind of get that regional, national feel. And then we also
Yes,
have lots of Canadian members. So you got to, feel for them, because they got a big country up there to travel. So it gives you that whole feel. And judging all over the country and out of the country, you get to see different things. And I think that was the best perspective that I got from
yeah,
being in it all these years. And the other thing is, God damn it, we're just volunteers. Some of these
yes,
people think
yeah,
we're
yes,
elected politicians that we should be snapping up. We do this in our spare time. And I think you have to, before you start raising hell and complaining, you have to put that in perspective, that these people are all volunteers. They're doing the best they can. We screw shit up. There's no doubt about it. And we try to fix it. And that's how you got to go about it. I do like, on the ABA side, we have term limits. And I think that's something
I agree with that. Yes.
yeah,
Term
the
limits
director.
are important for breed clubs, for organizations, for everything, because that is the whole purpose of the board, is differing opinions, different ideas being from different regions, so that
Exactly.
you serve everybody. And if you keep the same people in the same positions over and over and over again, you kind of lose that.
Yep. I think it's always good to get new faces in there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
Yes.
again, in the back of my head, I remember they're doing this on their own free will. They're not. It's not like anybody does this for any kind of recognition or accolades.
Right.
That's for damn sure.
Right. Well, and
20 some years on boards, and
it's one of those things where a lot of the time the people that like to complain the most have never volunteered. They've never been in those positions. They've never helped run a show. They've never, sat on the board of directors or been a district director for a breed club, or, an organization like the ABA or the APA. And it's really hard when you haven't done that position to understand what that entails. And it's a lot.
some people
It is a lot.
have their perspective and they don't want to hear nothing else. And when you're
Yeah.
on these boards, you have to listen to all the perspectives, whether you agree with them or not, and come to some kind of consensus at the end of the day that this is the way we should proceed forward.
And I think part of it is too, is you find out that a lot of people need to get a life besides their hobby.
Yes.
To me, and I don't mean this really derogatory, because truthfully, I haven't seen as much now as I had before. But you know what? These, besides just being volunteers that have a life, is they're just chickens or ducks
Right.
or geese or guineas. I mean, there's no real money in it.
Right.
You
We're
may
not
put
doing
in,
$100,000 horses,
no, you may put in whatever you want. You think, and yep, that is quite a bit of money for a damn chicken
Hmm.
or feed. But there's nobody going to get rich by showing chickens.
No.
And you can think, wow, they're selling that, and he sold $20,000 worth. Well, he might have had $27,000 worth.
Oh,
Of
I'll
feed.
guarantee it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's in the whole scope of things. We're little. We're real little. So you got to keep in mind, why, yeah, that is important. It would be great if this happened, but you're only a vote. And if it's 9-7, guess what?
Right.
The 7, you can either pout and raise hell and act like an idiot, or you
Right.
can say, okay, we'll just have to keep on, and we'll keep trying. So there's nothing wrong with keep trying. There's nothing wrong with putting your opinions out there. But if it don't go your way, it
Right.
don't go your way.
Well, and
And I think you need to ground yourself in that there's more to life. This is a large
much
part of
more.
all 3 of our lives. But we have
Yes.
done this a long time and seen things come and seen things go. And you'll find out those that stay the course are still there.
Yes.
You don't get your panties in a wad and you don't quit. Well, what do you prove then? Just keep on. And I
So, and you
think
have to
that's what
do it
I
because you
take out
love
of
it.
this.
You have to do this because you
Yeah.
love it. You can't do it for any other reason.
When you do these boards and serve on these things, it's on your dime. Number one, it costs you money. It takes time away
Yes.
from your family and your hobby to go do this for other people. And not that we don't feel appreciated, because there's plenty of them that thank me over the years for what we've done and what we haven't done, and you know, try to get things done. But I think in probably the last 20 years, we've seen more things progress than we had in the 40 or 50 before that. It was very slow changing before. And I think now we, especially on the ABA side, because we're always, you know, promoting new breeds, new people, new varieties.
Yeah.
And we've got so many new people. I think I said at Columbus, there was what, 700 people on that list. And I used to know everybody on it. And I probably didn't know 2/3 of them. So you got all this new folks coming in, and you try to expose them right. You try not to lead them astray, and I don't sugarcoat nothing with any of them either. You know, this is the way this is going to be. It's like self blue. If somebody comes up to me and tell me they're going to raise self blue, I said, well, then you're going to have lots of frustrations, because it's just
and I can speak firsthand on that.
Right,
Yes.
it's just built into that breed. In 50 years, I judged one good self blue. It was a Deanver, Greg Romer's, and she was perfect, and she won best of show. I have never seen one
maybe the
since.
most volatile gene that I've ever worked with. It's very, very finicky.
But at the same time, right? If that's your passion, just know that you're going to take an ass whipping.
Yep.
Right. But that shouldn't deter you if that is your passion to keep on keeping on and trying all you can try. That's all you can ever ask of anybody. You know, I tried to get this. I didn't get it done. That's life.
Yep. If we all batted 1,000, it wouldn't be much fun, would it?
No, not at all. Not at all. So
well, and that's a part of it. That's a big part of it. Is nothing about raising poultry is what I would call easy. It's just, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And being a breeder, and so that's one thing that I will say, and I'm sure you guys have seen this coming from a variety of people from different livestock backgrounds, like me being from horses, like Mike's from horses, and hogs, and in those industries, cattle, a lot of your people who win are purchasing their animals. So they're buying them from breeders, and then they're showing them, and then they're doing well. Dogs is another good example of that. In poultry, the breeders are usually the ones who stay at the top. It's one of the few exhibition places where you find that your breeders are the ones who are actually exhibiting. And I think that a lot of new people that come from other hobbies, other livestock hobbies specifically, struggle with that.
Yep. Unless
so
you're
right, because they want to be able to buy a really good bird.
Yep.
And then they realize the breeders aren't going to sell that perfect, not well, as close to perfect as they've raised maybe for that year or what have you. So that's something I find with new people that's really difficult, is that if you're not willing to be a breeder in this hobby, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough.
I think we try to cement it in there as best we can that breeder birds and show birds are two different things. And
one of the first things Mike Sayre ever said to me.
And
I'll never forget it.
Nobody has probably crossed lines more than we have, but I can tell you that 9 out of 10 times that doesn't work. That 1 out of 10 times that it does, you better count your blessings and move on. But we talked about this with doing trio matings with Ken last week. As long as those two birds in that trio, those two females, are sisters, I'm okay with it. But how are you ever going to repeat that mating if you don't know where the chicks come from? And I think Dan's like the total anal retentive on pedigreeing and keeping records and all that. Probably better than we are, because once you get a line fairly well established, you don't need to be quite as good at it. But I can still walk.
I know he's better than I am.
I know I can walk out there now, though, and I can, because of the ABA leg bands, we'll give them a plug, but I can look at a bird, know how old it is, where it come from, and probably tell you 4 generations back just by looking at him where that come from. If you do that and you're just throwing shit together and you know, crossing this and that, you're going to always struggle, because every time you bring that new bird in, you're bringing in a whole nother pile of problems, and you might not see it the first time around. It might take it a
Yep.
little. That's
So
one reason years ago I got rid of frizzles, because the frizzles were messing up my smooth coachings.
mhm.
I knew that I couldn't keep them around, although they were nice and they won well and sold well. I told him, I said, "Gotta get rid of them." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because they're going to mess up my smooths." And I did. And I started getting twisted wings, and I started getting crazy feathering. And it was because you get those smooths out of those frizzles that look good. And man, I should use that now. And don't. So I can tell you, don't, because that's a whole nother discussion we'll have to have some other time. But if you're doing frizzles, you probably should do frizzles.
Never bring them to your smooth feathered. Yeah.
Yeah,
For a newbie, there's a way that I always band my birds that I think is really helpful for new people. I still do it to this day. I have a whiteboard in my breeding room. Each one of my male breeder birds for the year and my female breeder birds for the year are documented by a color leg band. And the male band goes on the left foot and the female band goes on the right foot. And I can literally pick up any chicken in the yard and tell you which male and which female it came from just by the color. So I don't have to go into the records in my computer and my notebook and look up the number and see. I can literally look at those two colors right there alone and know the pedigree of the bird. And that's one thing. If you ever see my birds at a show, a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, what do the colors mean?" And that's it. This female's a red-green female from 2024, and she was off of these birds. It makes it easy. I'm like you. I have a borderline photographic memory. So breeding comes pretty easy to me. I'm like you. I can kind of look at every bird in my yard and go, "Oh, I know who that is. I know who that is." But that's kind of hard for some people. And I think in some breeds, like moderns, I don't know that I could do it in moderns. They get to be really uniform and similar in almost every aspect. At least I think so when I'm at Lindsay's and I'm looking at 20 of them at a time.
It's
But
a good problem to have in moderns. And then mostly with moderns, when I had them, especially Birchins and Brown Reds, you get to those finer points about correct lacing, too much, too little, station, all those things. You can kind of fine tune a little better, but you got to realize you're starting with a whole lot better genetic stock. So there's a whole lot more of those.
A lot more history behind it.
Breed. Yep. So you got a lot more of them being raised, and there's not many bad ones that get to perpetuate on. They usually are culled out pretty quick. So moderns and Old English are two that are really tough to when you get to them finer points, then you're fine tuning, some stuff there. But I think that's it. You got to have your own little system of how you keep track of it, and just don't try to willy-nilly it. Because I said you're never going to get very far doing that. You're always going to be
especially starting a line.
Yep.
Like you're going to hurt yourself if you're just throwing your birds together and letting them breed, because you don't know what's coming from what.
We talk about that a lot.
You can't cut something out.
Yeah, a lot as judges, we go through there, and if I go down through there and I see you got 8 birds and they all look alike, then I know that's a breeder. If I go down through there, we have those breeders where they got 8 birds and they're all different type, they're all different shapes, then I know that you're doing that shotgun approach, and you're not getting the consistency. And that's what we all try to do. I want to put up 7 birds in a display or 10 birds.
Look the same. Yeah.
Look alike. And the good ones do that. The bad ones don't.
I think that's one of the biggest compliments I get as a breeder is when somebody comes up to me and goes, "Oh, I knew which birds were yours right away." Yep. Like that's a huge compliment as a breeder to have somebody say that to you, because to me, at least, makes me feel like I'm doing the right things in the barn.
Yep, and we do that as judges. We don't know whose they are a lot of times, but we know by numbers on the tag. Number 3, all his females look alike, all his males look alike. His trio matches up well. That impresses you as a judge that guy's a breeder, or that girl, that lady's a breeder, and that they're doing what they should be doing.
Yes, yeah.
And then when somebody comes up and asks you a question afterwards, "Well, what didn't you like about my birds?" Well, here you've got a male over here that's huge. It's got different type from this male here. Then you've got 4 females in there that are, every one of them's different. So you have to kind of get with whatever it is in your mind that you think the type should be and run with it, and make sure they all look that way. I'm off the soapbox. I'm off the soapbox.
No, that's all right. I had a question I answered yesterday online about trios. And,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
and how to show trios. They were talking about wanting to show trios, I think at the Northeastern Poultry Congress, and just what goes into that. So I tried to type all this, right, and you know me and typing. So if they watch, and I think they do, let's just go into that real quick. That when you show a trio, remember that the male is half the battle.
50%.
Half the points. If the male gets disqualified, your trio is out.
Mhm.
All right. Your two females should look as much alike as possible.
Yep.
They should be good. They shouldn't be two pieces of trash that look alike, but they should be as much alike as possible. And to further that, because I think there's some confusion, unfortunately, on some judges too. In a trio, the best of variety and reserve of variety can come out of that first place trio.
Mhm.
The best of breed and reserve of breed can come out of that first place trio. The champion, in this case, let's just say feather-legged and reserve, can come out of that first place trio, and the champion or show and reserve can come out of that first place trio.
Mhm.
And I think, but correct, Matt?
Yes, right. And I got broke into that. I want to stop you before you go on, because years ago, and I'm talking in the early 2000s, I think I did the Congress. East Coast, they put their best birds in the trio. So you got to be careful as a judge when you're going down through there. I'll call him out. Jerry Yao had Millie Fleur d'Ucles. He put his best male bird and his best two females in that trio. I can tell you that year, best feather leg was the male out of that trio, and reserve feather leg was one of the females out of the trio, and I could have took either one. And I got down through other classes that day, and I thought, my God, all the good birds are in the trio. Well, that's how they did it in the old days.
Mhm.
You put your best stuff in the trio. The problem where they got away from it was the judges weren't picking them because they didn't know what he just said. So
Well,
I
and a
think
lot of times
maybe,
it's on clerks too. Clerks will miss them completely. It's important.
Right.
I always try to mark the right tag or whatever was on there, but I
It's
think
hard.
we've gotten better at it and better
I
at
think so.
educating. And I think that's something with the new judges, and I tried to emphasize on the ABA side when we were on the judges licensing program, is how to judge a display and how to calculate a display, number one, number two, how to figure out trios. And I think they're coming back. They're getting a little more popular for that reason. There's starred wins for trios. There's awards for trios, and those that do them really well are usually the best breeders. So just be careful, because your best birds can definitely be in those trios. I tend to put my best male I got, or one of the best ones, in a trio.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that even though the male is half of that trio, those two pullets, those two hens, can be best in reserve. One of them doesn't have to be that male.
Right.
But he is half of the points. So you got a shitty male and two really nice females.
Doesn't matter. Yep.
Doesn't matter. You're going against the flow there. And
It's a learning curve.
It is, and one really good male and one really good female, and the other female doesn't match.
Yeah, you're screwed.
One tip I would tell people, and this is one thing I do at home in the fall, and sometimes I leave it set up all year. If you can do and you have the room to do it, I set up 2 6-foot tables and I put keepers on them. And I will put my females, not even when I'm just selecting a trio, it's really good for selecting a trio, but even going through your culls, and you'll see a lot of other breeders do this too. You can put those birds together on a table in cages beside each other. And that's when you can really see the differences in them. But when you're selecting a trio, that's when you can really find the two that match the most, is seeing them up in a cage on a table like that, instead of just walking out into the bird yard and going, oh, you guys kind of look alike. If you're able to put those birds, I mean, I did it one year. I had it picked out. Oh, well, it was the 150th. I had champion large fowl trio at Columbus for the 150th. It took me like 20 minutes between 3 pullets to decide which 2 to put together at the show, after I had already done it at home, because I wanted to make sure they were so matched.
Another thing you just brought up, they can look very different in the cage as what they do on the ground.
Yes, very much.
Definitely a tip. You want to get them cooped up in a show cage and get them used to that a little bit before you do make that final selection, because you can get one that's going to dump over in the corner and not do anything. Although she may have looked like the other one out in the yard, you want them to look the same. And we say this about runner ducks all the time. A runner duck can be great in the ring, but if it don't look good in the show cage, we're done. So I that's a great point to bring up. Make sure you get them in a show cage and get them used to being in there and in that trio situation. And I think you'll do better in trio judging as it goes.
Well,
the trio judging is a lot
environment matters.
20 years ago, because 20 years ago, most of the shows didn't have trios except if they were old shows or East Coast shows, and you just didn't do it. They did the 7-bird thing and went on. Now that we're getting back into trios and they seem to be a little more popular, it's something you definitely want to pay attention to.
It's definitely a breeder's game, and it's a challenge. And I like that was my second time showing a trio, was at the 150th in Ohio. And I've shown a couple since then. I haven't had any females that were so similar to make me want to, but I'm also a perfectionist. So I'm like, if they don't look, if the comb doesn't match, if the eye placement doesn't match, like I'm not going to show it. The females aren't getting shown in a trio. I'd rather not show it than have two females that are mismatched, which you do see a lot in these trios. You see mismatched females, which kind of ruins the whole purpose.
Right. And I think that's just inexperience.
As two different pullets and two hens, and just show the cockerel or cockbird by himself. You might as well show them singles if they don't match.
Yes.
Do you any good? Because you can kill yourself by mismatching a really good female.
And she'll get missed
or a really
completely.
Good male with two mismatched females. You're dead in the water. If the judge knows what he's doing. That's
right.
And judges are getting better at it. We see a lot more birds coming out of trios than we used to, Matt.
George Byers is one that almost all the time.
Yeah.
And George is old school, and he's old school East Coast. So that's how he was trained. You know, your best birds in the trio.
And it's the same way with judges when you go and you watch them. We're getting a lot better where if there's two fantastic cockerels, two fantastic hens, name it, they can be best and the second place one be reserved.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be if they were, because that second place bird was never beat by anything in the show except that first place bird. So as long as that first place bird keeps going, it can keep going. And I think a lot of judges are hesitant to do that. Don't be, because our job is to pick the two best in the
best chicken, no matter what they are.
In the class. Exactly. So that's your job. So just do your job and don't worry about the fallout. Well, it doesn't make a difference. As Matt says, what your opinion is today, mine is the one that counted.
Yeah. Well, and I've done a lot of second place birds.
Oh.
as I'm kind of known for that, but as reserve variety, reserve breed, whatever, because it's not fair to that second place bird. Because once you're done and you've got your best of variety, let's say it's a cockerel, and you've got a hellacious second place cockerel that you didn't, have a whole lot of difference between the two of them, and it's better than everything else that's down the road. I don't have no qualms with making that cockerel reserve a variety, reserve a breed.
We've done that for champion the show and reserve of show before.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to pick the two best birds, not because you know what, these people. You got to give them
spread the love around.
Spread the wealth a little bit. No, you don't. Nothing's fair in this world. The best should win. The second best should be second best. That's life, and that's the way we should judge chickens.
I'll call him out because he finally agreed after this is the 41st episode. Bill Wolf come on here for long, so we got him talked into doing this. He said it may take 13 hours. I said, no, we'll cut you off about an hour. But one time he had two black Old English cockerels, and Mike Watsky and I were judging. And he says, what do you think, Matt? I said, well, I know that black Old English is the best bird here. I said, my dilemma is that reserve Old English is the second best bird here. I don't have any two that can beat. They're both spot on. And he had best of show and reserve of show, about crapped his pants because everybody's going to talk about him. But no, they were the two best birds there, and he won best of show and reserve of show with two black Old English, which those were the two best we had. And I was happy with it at the end of the day. Nobody could really argue with it because they were both in great condition. They both showed, and they both felt good. So that's the way it played out. And Mike's very right. That can happen. You always have to go look And sometimes we don't see it done, but if you pick something on the champion side that's best of the large fowl or best bantam or best waterfowl, you've got to go look at the reserve bird in that class. And you'll see me do that a lot, whether that's what we're going to pick or not. We did it at Arkansas. I actually like
with the white Wyandottes.
That was both those birds were very nice.
Yes.
And we had to go look at them because she's definitely in the running, because she's just as good as that male bird on the other side. And
I actually liked her better, but she was missing in the hackle. She was phenomenal.
She was a little ways to go, but
yep, she was awesome.
But you do have to go look at that. Just, if you're judging correctly, you do have to go look at that reserve bird. So
I think that's smart. I like seeing judges do that, giving that bird a chance if it's worthy. Absolutely.
Because most people think they get on the reserve side. Oh well, we're done.
We're done for
really. You've always got a chance.
Yeah. Well, we've done that. I remember several years ago in Rose Comb Clean Lake. Remember, we were over to somewhere in Indiana, and I had no clue, and I forget what they picked for champion bantam.
It was a quail Denver was best to show, and a black Wyandotte was reserve, and they were the
black Wyandotte, and she was
best in the reserve. Rose combs went all the way out the whole way, which happened.
Yep, you have to pay attention to the other side of the road, because sometimes you can. And there's several times we said, "Well, I like the reserve better," but
sometimes you bring them up. But sometimes when you bring them up, I've had that myself. I've judged
it changes.
I thought
that's one of the biggest complaints you hear from large fowl breeders is when the large fowl get judged too late in the day, they get tired. And they can, or say champion row is at the end of the day with big chickens versus the very next day. A bird can look totally different in that span of time.
Yep.
Well, it's the same way when we're judging. If we're judging the first show, pick it. It's like, yep, there. And so the second show, you'll think, well, that's a whole different group. Well, 3 hours or 4 hours of
later,
that can change everything.
Oh yeah.
The bird that wasn't showing is now showing. The bird that was showing, she didn't want any part of it. It's over. They're
gonna lay an egg, or God knows
or
what.
They're gonna lay an egg, or whatever happens, or it was laying an egg in the first show, and the second show it was standing there.
Yep.
Like it should. So I mean, people have to take that into account when they're watching a double show. That they're different. Well, there's usually a reason why they're different. It's hot. It's cold. They're tired. Whatever. There's a variety of things.
Hungry.
Yeah, the hungry. Yeah. That's another thing that can be said for the same thing for you talk about the people that volunteer for these organizations, for your judges. I mean, so many people put so much stock into that freaking 10 seconds that bird gets looked at, and will, either get super upset or super excited, either way, that, a judge can only do what a judge can do in that short period of time. And I mean, I remember how many moderns did I clerk with you for in Shawnee? Like, we didn't, those birds, it was so, you had to go through them.
63, I think.
Yeah. Like that was there was 84 birchen pullets. Like, you got to think of the amount of time that you're able to look at those birds. Like, and you can't, I hate it when people get mad at judges when I'm like, that bird could have been laying on its ass the whole time. And one thing I think I will use a lot that I like to use in junior shows is I'll write DNS on a card, did not show, so people know why their bird.
Yeah. It helps you too, because you go back through and think, shit, how did I miss that one? Well,
and because it wasn't showing.
That's how you've missed it. Or you've missed a little bit more time.
Especially in game birds and laggards. That's one of their biggest downsides, is that they can change on you. And we talked last week, call ducks are another one. Not a hard class of anything to judge, because they change on you, and depending on temperament and how well you got them stirred up and all that, you just have to let them settle down and go on. If you try to
sometimes you got to just step away from them and let them relax, because they are really high strung little birds.
Yep. Some of the waterfowl classes are that way. You got to let them get back into where they need to be, because they get excited when people walk by or somebody bumps them.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I think what he said there, which you said, I think after the first time I told you, and I said, never take one person's opinion on what you breed.
Yes.
You have in your mind what you think and what you put together and what you went through. And if you made progress, you do you. And don't worry about what someone else thinks, because sooner or later, you keep going and putting them down and you show enough of them, they'll have to change.
I always hate to hear
Absolutely.
an exhibitor tell me that they brought 30 birds for the judge to call them. Well, that's fine if that's what
Right.
the judge raises. But if I don't raise, the example I'll use is Doug Hummel and his buttercups. Well, I ain't never raised them, probably ain't never going to raise them. And I know what they're supposed to look like, but I'll pick out the two best ones, but I can't tell you how to breed those damn things, and I ain't going to try. And I did this with a woman out in Arkansas several years ago. Wanted to know about white-faced black Spanish. I said, well, I can tell you the best showbirds here today, but if you want to talk about Spanish, go over and talk to Bridget. She can tell you the ins and outs way better than I can. So we're not experts in everything we judge.
And it goes back to showbirds versus breeder birds. And I kind of cringe a little when I hear a new person say, well, I want to talk to the judge about why he placed the birds where they are. And I'm like, I always say one judge's opinion today should not affect how you breed your birds in your barn, because your birds, you don't know what they were doing in that time period. And if I had done that, I've had some really awesome hens go 5th place in one show and champion large fowl in another one. You really can't do that as a breeder. It's just not smart.
Nope. That's definitely something that I always hate to hear that, because no, I shouldn't be sorting your birds out in a show for you to breed from. That's something you pretty much got to do yourself and live by your decisions. So I always hate
read
to
the
hear
first 34 pages of the standard, and if you're looking at the APA standard, and then make decisions.
Yep. We're here to judge the showbirds, not set your matings up for you.
Yes, exactly.
Now, if it's a breed that we raise, then we may be
insight.
And I can tell you whether it's a showbird or it's a breeder bird in that point. But for most stuff that I don't, haven't raised for a while or don't raise at all, I'm just picking what I think's the best showbird there to that day. I don't know or care whether it's going to be a breeder or not. That's not my job.
That's not your job, right?
Well, Maddie, I have 15 chickens to wash, so
yeah,
I'm
heading that way too. So
I got to feed horses. That's where I'm headed. So
all right. Well, thanks for coming on, Stephanie. We
absolutely
enjoyed it.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. Anytime if you think of things, we give this open invitation. If you think of things or an update or something that you want to convey through this little platform we have, just let either one of us know, and you can pop in and pop out if
awesome.
you have to.
This has been it's so enjoyable to watch, and it's been such a great program that you guys have put together. So I know the poultry community loves it. So
well, it's just like if we talk at the shows, except less vulgarity,
less imbibing. I still
and
say
less bourbon. Well, maybe
today we're still number 3 in Iraq. So go Iraq. We're hot over there. They love us.
Yeah.
We're hot now. I don't know what any. I can't say one single word except thanks. I don't even know what that is.
I'm thinking they're using Google Translator or something to get it through, but I think they are just and it's Baghdad. That's the city. So they must really enjoy this. So kudos to them.
Good. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, and good luck in Knoxville.
Yep.
We'll
miss you.
We'll miss you. We always need luck, no matter what.
Well, we'll be in Shawnee next weekend, so.
Not me.
Yeah, you got that ride to look forward to.
Oh yeah. So, well, you guys have a great day.
All right, you too, Steph. Take care, everybody.